This is SpeakEasy, the podcast where I talk to our guests about their beverage of choice and lessons learned from lives lived in the marketing trenches. I'm Doug Stanley-Hunt, founder of Catalysis, a digital marketing agency here in Seattle, and your host and bartender here in the Cloakroom, the hidden bar in the basement of our home in a 100-year-old former church. In this episode, we're here with Matt Peterson, the executive creative director at Catalysis. He has a long career in advertising. He's been everywhere from small agencies to Wieden+Kennedy, the iconic legend in Portland. He founded his own agency and finally landed here at Catalysis. He was creating viral moments for Starbucks a decade before social media was even thought of. He created a rare campaign for Nike focusing on the fan experience around March Madness, which broke from their historic focus on the athlete. And for the past 5 years, he's been working at the intersection of data, creativity, and AI right here at Catalysis. He also shares why he thinks tequila is so great. So let's go learn something. Hey, Matt. Welcome to SpeakEasy. So today I'm going to start with your beverage of choice.
Scratch margarita.
Scratch margarita. Oh my God, I have the ingredients right here.
Oh my God.
I say that every time.
You knew.
So we start. You like an amber.
I like a reposado. Yeah,
Reposado.
A little bit aged.
Okay. Well, Cuervo is what we have for
That's
today. Yeah. So what do you think the tequila adds? What we usually talk about the ingredients as we go.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many amazing tequilas, but tequila's got its own kind of brand as a liqueur. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit deviant. Gets you, I don't know, feeling good.
Okay, and then what do we get from the triple sec?
Oh, the triple sec just kind of smooths things out a little bit.
Okay.
A little fruit,
real sweet,
orange liqueur mixed with the lime, which is the
fresh
star,
lime juice,
the fruit star.
And what is your why a margarita?
To me, it's just kind of like an escape in a glass. It takes you to a sunny place in your mind. To me, it has a lot of association, obviously, with Mexico. Spent quite a bit of time on shoots, actually, for Pacifico Beer. About 9 years going down there on a lot of productions. And so,
and the fresh lime.
A lot of varied margaritas.
I love it. And I have a very long history of margaritas. Some good, some bad. I like to say some of my most interesting choices have been made over a margarita that have either ended badly or wonderfully. So cheers to taking risks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Transported instantly.
Welcome to the beach.
You did it.
All right. So let me get a coaster as well. The cloakroom.
Oh, one interesting story on tequila. A friend of mine was working at Goodby Silverstein at the time, and they had Cuervo. And he told me his favorite line from the brief was the most socially acceptable form of deviant behavior.
Oh, I like that.
Was the brief for Cuervo. And it stuck with me for some reason.
That's been my experience.
Yeah.
I'll just leave that there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your journey first to what brought you to advertising. Let's start there.
Yeah. I'd say it started back in college. I was working at going to the University of Puget Sound, small liberal arts school. We had a radio station on campus, KUPS. I was into music at the time, new wave. I was buying 12-inch singles and things, and I got a radio show, 10 to 12 on Sunday nights. And they had an opening for a marketing director position at the station. And I thought that sounded kind of interesting. So I got that job, and my job was to create a programming poster for the semester where all the shows were listed, and but also sold ad space on the bottom of it to local businesses, the Euro shop and the bar down the street. And so I had to kind of put this whole thing together without really a lot of experience of knowing how to build anything. So I got to hire like an illustrator, had a little bit of budget, and then I had to go around door to door and try to sell little postage stamp size ads to put on the poster. And that wasn't probably my favorite part, but it had to fund the poster basically and raise money. Mm-hmm. I got to learn like PageMaker. It was an early layout program. Mm-hmm. And so that I thought that was pretty cool. I could put this thing together and create something graphic that got posted around the school and around the community.
Earn money and gave people an awareness of the station.
Work with an artist, like a cool illustrator who did the main art and agreed to kind of donate his time on a little bit. So Yeah.
So I was a college DJ as well, WCFM Williamstown, which is
nice.
funny. I can still remember that. But we didn't do ad sales. We didn't do anything. We just showed up and played music.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so from there, so you started that, and what was your major when you went?
Business marketing emphasis, then an art minor.
Okay.
So it was lining up a little bit.
Did it change anything for you?
That job, I think I was figuring out how I could apply the art minor that I had, which was, I was doing pottery and printmaking, and it was very fine art at a liberal arts school. But then I could see the commercial application of graphics. And I thought that was really interesting, color theory and type and putting all that together. So that was starting to pique my interest, and then got out of school and took some graphic design classes on the side as a night job, and really liked it, and eventually decided, I heard about this thing called art direction, which was a little bit more on the conceptual side than pure graphic design, which is more technical and aesthetic. There's still a lot of concept in graphic design, obviously, but art direction, you pair up with a writer and you create kind of concepts for advertising. So I started leaning that way.
I like that. I like that you're explaining as well, because to a lot of people, the whole industry, you hear of, account director and strategist and art director and designer, and there's all those components, and to find one that you like that leads to your career is pretty interesting. So from my understanding, you went to school and got that was in
Atlanta, a portfolio center. A friend of mine was there and told me about it, and it's like a 2-year program, and so I just decided I wanted to kind of go both feet in and really, I didn't think I had the discipline at the time to build a portfolio on my own doing night classes. So I decided to commit full time and went to Atlanta.
So you came from there and you moved back to the Northwest.
Yeah, I got a job in Seattle, first job at an agency.
At an agency. And who was your first client?
First client was, I think it was probably K2 Skis and Sim Snowboards. It was kind of when snowboarding was coming on in the late 90s. And it was, dream job, because I was doing all these things as a ski bum, ex-ski bum. Yeah. And so I got to work on these cool products.
And what would you say that you did on K2 Skis that you did right? I mean, because K2 is still around. What do you think you did right for K2 Skis?
Yeah, everything was pretty simple back then. It was print ads, it was billboards, not too much digital stuff yet. So we, the goal was to make kind of a beautiful print campaign, and and also some brochures, that you might find at the ski shop, things like that. I think we just took a lot of what K2's ethos was, coming from Vashon Island and being up in the northwest corner and having this kind of rebel hippie attitude, and we just kind of embodied that, and didn't just show beautiful shots of skiers. It was more attitude driven and graphically punchy, and so I think most of the magazines were just beautiful photography of skiers, and so we didn't do that. We just kind of did more tongue in cheek.
Okay. And then what would you think was your biggest learning? Like, oops, that didn't work, but it was a good learning experience.
Young, I didn't know kind of the client game yet and how to get in with them. So I think if I could do it again, I would get more involved in the business and on a holistic level, and understand what everybody needed the marketing to do. That is just the cool thing that went out in the magazine.
That is really an interesting point that you make, because I think that is a critical learning, and we see it even now quite frequently when we're competing and we're getting feedback from customers, like say at a large cloud services company here, is that the agencies come in, but they don't really understand the technology or the business. And when you're working in something as specific as AI, you really need to know how to use AI. So even when we're working on cloud services, you have to know what the cloud services are and almost have a technology understanding or a technology reference to be able to understand the client's business so that you can create good work for them. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that mistake is often made in by young or even by agencies in particular?
Yeah, I think it's like sometimes when you're a younger creative, you think your role is over here just to create from the brief that you're given. And I think you have an opportunity to get in with the strategy team earlier and the client and play that role as well as best you can to be a deeper strategist, because we have to put on a lot of different hats as an agency. You have to you have to learn very quickly about someone's business to really understand the product. So yeah, I would just urge any young creative to not just stay in their lane and join, ride along shotgun with the strategist and the account folks as they're building up the brief and learning the product.
Okay, so in a word of advice, I'm thinking about that too, because as we're moving into AI, and we'll get there later, but one of the things, I think it was the head of BlackRock Investments, when asked what skills should somebody have to be a useful worker, to job security in the next wave, what would it be? And he said judgment. And I think that's interesting, but I think judgment plus curiosity is really critical. And that generally comes from a liberal arts education, which both of us have. And that idea to look at a client's business and be curious about their business itself, in addition to just coming up with interesting brand ideas. And I think that's sort of a very fundamental piece of advice for people, is be curious, like you just said.
Although we did have this funny part of the agency we called woodvertising, because it was like windows and manufactured lumber, which was really random and totally foreign to me, but I had to work on those. And so I had to really learn that industry and go on job sites and talk to builders and GCs and things like that. And so I think that opened my mind to how a company like that would market, and what, how much emotion would you put into an ad for a window company
or manufactured lumber.
But you're thinking about building decks and looking out your window. There's a lot of emotion for an end consumer in those products.
Right.
So I had the opportunity to go work at a larger agency, got recruited to work at Wieden+Kennedy. My partner at the time, Ian Cohen, and I, writer, art director duo. And that was, the chance to go work on Nike. I'd be moved to Portland and all that, but it was...
That's kind of like the pinnacle. When you were there, it was like they were the coolest agency in the world. They were the pinnacle.
Yeah, so it was really great to get that call and have that opportunity to work on a global stage.
And what do you think was one of your proudest moments working with them and Nike?
Yeah, I got to work on... We got hired to work on Miller Beard at the start, but then they lost that account like 2 months after we got there. So we were kind of like, okay, we're ready to work on some Nike stuff now. So we started to get some Nike assignments, tennis, golf, and then got this big campaign for the NCAA March Madness college basketball campaign. They were going to put a lot of money behind it and get to go shoot with, the big directors and all the coaches of the schools and all that. So we created this campaign called Bracketville, where it's this fictional town where the roads all look like the bracket, and there's aerial photos and weird things happen there. And it was very much like a fan-forward campaign, and Nike was always about the athletes. So this is kind of a cool, fun, lighthearted celebration of this great event.
And the fans, and how did it play?
It was great. Yeah, I think it got a lot of love, and there was some shoe products involved that we would feature here and there, that, basketball high tops and stuff. But that was secondary to just the fan experience. And we created large campaigns from like Mayor of Bracketville, and each coach had their own poster. And we had, it had just all kinds of cool little side elements that kind of integrated it on a larger level.
So a big comprehensive campaign for Nike, but not in Nike's traditional lane of athlete, but one that honored the fans, which is really, in so many ways, even today, and I know that was a while ago.
Yeah.
I would say a long time at our age, but a while ago.
Early 2000.
Yeah, a while ago. And that was honoring what March Madness is about, which is so much of the fan participation, the office pools, the enthusiasm for it at the college level, which you really, I think you mostly see. I mean, it's amazing that you see that in basketball more than any other college sport. I really think so. I mean, football you see at the school level, but the bowls are not like all the teams together for one champion.
Yeah, it's really condensed, like high energy craziness. It's called madness for a reason, and it's just upsets, and you never know what's going to happen. And then everybody with their office pools, anybody can win that pool. It's such a crapshoot of what's going to happen.
So you said they lost the Miller account relatively quickly. Funny, because I worked with, I was on the Microsoft side back when Microsoft named them as their global agency, and they created the agency in the Netherlands, or they were doing it out in the Netherlands. And that's another one where I think the team came in hugely creative, and they created this font-based, very European type campaign for Microsoft, and it kind of was talked about as a huge excitement. We've got this global agency, we're now a global player now, and we're doing it out of the European office because we want to be a part of their global footprint, not just their Northwest footprint as an American company. And it didn't last long. It was really painful. And did you see that? Can you think about examples of like why that might have been? Or?
Yeah, I got there right after Wieden+Kennedy lost that account in the late 90s, and they had it for a couple years. And I remember it being a huge deal for them to get a client like that after mainly just being the Nike agency. So it showed Wieden+Kennedy's ability to kind of grow up on a different level. And would those two cultures clash potentially? Tech and attitude-based, athlete-driven campaigns. And it did. I think ultimately the cultures weren't quite aligned, and Wieden+Kennedy wasn't kind of adaptable enough to kind of figure out how to navigate the Microsoft world and what their ethos was. So I think I heard a lot about it after I got there, kind of like, well, that didn't work out kind of thing. And then, I think obviously Wieden+Kennedy has figured that out, worked with lots of tech companies at this point, successfully.
But I think to bring that back, I think what you mentioned about learning the client's business, it felt a little bit like they came in with the brand team at Microsoft and let all the internal work come from them. And they said, oh, here we go, rolling it out. Isn't this great? And it didn't really show a huge understanding, back to what you said about timber, or manufactured timber products and Windows. They didn't really seem to know the business as well.
Yeah, I'm sure Wieden+Kennedy went in with a big ego and just said, we know what's right here, and maybe didn't take the time to kind of launch it internally and get everybody bought in.
Did Wieden+Kennedy have smaller accounts at that point?
Not too many. I think they were, they had some smaller things. I worked on like Round Table Pizza for a little bit, and Henry Weinhardt's beer. So they had some regional stuff. But yeah, it was definitely more large scale. But, I think the ethos there was the work comes first. That was kind of the mantra. And so the creative was everything, and everybody served that. So it was like what went out the door was the most important thing creatively, and famous work. So I think that taught me, that, there was a lot of competitive hard work in the creative department and getting kind of your campaign seen. There's a lot of, competitive spirit inside of Wieden+Kennedy. Yeah, definitely 3.5 years or so. And then in any agency, there's like clients come and go, they have layoffs happen, and it's just the nature of the business. You almost expect that you're never going to be somewhere for all that long. And at that point in my career, there was a big, bunch of layoffs happen from loss of a couple accounts. So I had the opportunity to then go work in Amsterdam, freelance with a friend of mine who was working at a place called Strawberry Frog. So I thought at the time of my life that sounded fun and cool. So I went over there for a couple months and worked on Beck's Beer and Capgemini. And that's where we hatched the idea. Jim and I, old college friend who was working at Goodby Silverstein at the time before, decided to start Creature back in Seattle. It was just him and I and one other person. And it was basically like a glorified freelance team, but it didn't take that much to start an agency at the time. So we put our shingle out and started with the Professional Bowlers Association as our first client. Some ex-Nike execs were running that, and we had relationships there, and they said, you guys should do our marketing. So got to do that.
That's fun.
PBA.
And so you came in kind of with a client lined up to launch your agency.
Yes,
you got to really have that.
Yeah. And our office was right across the street from Starbucks headquarters. And so we're like, let's go, go get me a coffee and bring the account back when you come back. So that was just a running joke. And eventually we wore them down enough to get an assignment for a holiday campaign. They had big agencies, McCann Erickson or something. a lot of Seattle big companies went out of market for advertising services because I think, there were good agencies in Seattle, but a lot of times people bring in the CMO from outside and they would go back out with their partnerships. With their
relationships.
And we were always complaining about that happening with the big companies here.
So you started though we
got an assignment for holidays, and we were, it was kind of to do something kind of more PRable, and something called guerrilla marketing was coming around. And it was, how do you get on the news with a stunt and involve the consumer in the advertising? And so we created this campaign called Look for Holiday Magic, and one of the elements was putting magnetic latte cups on top of cars in New York City, and if you stop the driver, a good Samaritan, to help them save their latte from flying off, they gave you like a gift card, the driver. So they were kind of undercover drivers doing this stunt.
That's amazing, because how did it work?
Yeah, it worked great. It was picked up, CNN, and this thing called guerrilla marketing was coming on, and this was a great example of it. And so it got picked up in a lot of press releases, and we would film the little theater playing out, and it was a fun campaign that way.
So that's really early social media marketing, but you didn't have the platforms; you had the news, and so you're creating awareness through the news and creating buzz. And there were a couple campaigns like that were very successful. And until we get to now, how would you do it differently if you were having to deal with influencers?
It would have definitely been a socially driven campaign. And I think being able to share all these experiences across influencers, or, who happened to, this cup kind of turning red was really the impetus of what time of year that happens. Is kind of an iconic signal to the holidays that Starbucks wanted to own and be a tradition and create a new cup every year and kind of make it special. So I think there could have been a lot of interesting social media applications for that cup design and how it shows up, gets teased out, starts appearing.
In thinking on that, it could be cool. Like, I have a cup from the Kraken that when you fill it with a beverage, it changes color. I mean, that's old technology, right? But what if you had one of those Christmas cups, a red cup, and that when it got filled with the coffee, it turned gold or something, like the golden ticket.
Right.
And you got like a year's worth of free coffee beverages with that. I mean, there's so many things you could do to build on that now. I mean, if you want,
gamify
Starbucks,
the whole thing.
Starbucks, if you want a new campaign, we just came up with
one. Yeah, I think there was a lot of learning from that red cup moment, and what that was, the clients wanted that kind of thinking in addition to traditional work and channels. And so we were getting more briefs that way. And we ended up winning a little regional bank called Umpqua Bank, and out of Oregon, but they had a growing bank and doing interesting work and wanted to do interesting work. They had a good consumer business, but they didn't have much respect in the business community, but they wanted to get into the small business community. So we came up with this cool idea called the Lemonaire, and it was a campaign to build the original small business, which is the lemonade stand. Right. So we made these architecturally designed pop-up lemonade stands that kids could apply for, and with CRAN, and get like some startup capital and some cups and some equipment. And this stand, we made like 30 of them. So you could check, each branch had one, and you could check it, win it for a week or so and then bring it back. So it just started showing up around these neighborhoods as a small business. And so we got, good credit for being a supportive small business bank.
That's amazing. Because I think of a lemonade
very
stand.
PR'd as well. So that got tons of pickup in the news too.
Yeah. And now it would be totally all over social, and it'd be so adorable, and
kids,
mothers groups on Facebook or whatever. Look what my kid did. Be really cool if they then took that money and invested it with Umpqua, and Umpqua would show the returns, like they just got a 529 or they just got an IRA, a Roth IRA. Yeah. So that's really amazing. Like, it just feels so good, the warmth of that lemonade stand. That was a while ago, but do you see other iterations? I think we've done stuff like that at Catalysis.
Yeah, we kind of just did something like that for Red Hook. We did this campaign called Red Hook Hookups, and we kind of surprised places at work by stocking their work fridge with Red Hook. We went down to like a boat yard, and your work fridge is full of old lunches and random beverages. So we just kind of cleared that out and rolled in a cart like a hand truck full of Red Hook beers and just faced it up in their work fridge. And they got to kind of, we filmed the whole thing, and, they were, showed up in social. And so then we asked who else wants to hook up, and then businesses would kind of
go from
volunteer there on social.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And what was the tagline for that?
It was Red Hook hookups, hard work, cold reward. And now it's work makes thirst is kind of our campaign line that we're going out with. And so that's
work makes thirst. I like that.
Thirst, yeah.
Cheers.
Thirsty. Always has, always will.
So one other thing that we talked about when you're like with the bank, so much of that brand is for a pretty ubiquitous industry, banking. They all offer free checking or whatever. So it's delivered through service. Mm-hmm. How do you see brands succeeding in the service business? Where have you seen it as an epic fail?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially in the service business, it's really crucial that you launch your kind of new campaign internally and get a lot of buy-in with the company that's going to be living this promise that you're putting out in the world.
Yeah.
So, with Umpqua, we took the time to do that, meeting with all the branch managers and figuring out how they were going to deliver this lemonade experience for one, and getting them excited about it.
Yeah.
So they could,
I would say that was probably one of the fails with the Wieden+Kennedy Microsoft campaign is they just showed up, from the brand team and said, here's our new brand and here's what we're doing. And there wasn't a whole lot of work on understanding the internal employees' mind space or how they were going to deliver on it. It was a software product, not a service, but we were before software as service and cloud, But similarly, I would say, I feel like right now, Starbucks is in that situation. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's been a challenge for them with the unionization and the workers kind of not jiving with the vision currently. And so they've had a hard time with that. It used to be that, you got part of your college paid for it, the job had great kind of credibility behind it, and that made you like them more.
Benefits.
They treated their people right, and, you wanted to go work there. So I think getting back to, how can they get back to people having some ownership of each store and giving them some autonomy to make it a real authentic neighborhood store, even though it's a huge chain.
Yeah. We talked about this with actually someone else with Alan Brown, about the fact that you order online, you go in, you go out. It's like a drive-through experience almost, but you're walking into the store versus catering to the clientele who want to come in and have that third space, which is a lot of what Starbucks was based on. You have to simultaneously service both parts of that brand. And how do you do that? And I think that's a big challenge for them. But then I look on the side of Costco, who's getting all sorts of accolades because they treat their employees so well. And when you're in a Costco, it may be a bit of organized chaos.
Yeah.
And a treasure hunt at the same time, which is a big part of their brand. Find the deals.
Yeah.
But also the people that work there are very, very much engaged in delivering the Costco customer experience. I guess with creating a brand campaign that involves guerrilla marketing, you have a big risk there, especially on social media now, that you didn't have before because it was picked up by the press, say, on your Starbucks coffee cup campaign. But if you were to do it now, you also have to contend with all the haters on social media that may find it offensive or may find it problematic. And I think how would you work with that?
It's kind of the table stakes now when you're turning over your brand a little bit to your consumer base and letting go of that because of social media. If you want to be in the conversation, you have to contribute to it, to the community.
Yeah.
And then engage when they speak to you. And so there's a little bit of how do you respond to something you put out in the world? Be ready to step 2, 3, 4, 5.
You have to be ready for the negative. And you have to make a decision. Is that negative response positive? Like in the case of, it's funny, I think back to Abercrombie and Fitch when the CEO said, well, we don't hire fat people. Okay, did that help the brand? for their target,
Right.
very fit white teenagers and wannabes, maybe it helped them. Or Sydney Sweeney and the Jeans currently right now, is that helpful or not? And you have to decide, is that negative going to be a positive, or is it going to be something you want to, that's outside your community that really doesn't matter? So we talked about big agencies, small agencies, global campaigns, guerrilla marketing, hyper-local campaigns. If there's one through line that you live by about launching a brand campaign, one piece of advice you would give, what would it be?
It would be, does this contribute to the community that are our customers? Are we putting something out into the world that engages with them, opens a conversation, puts something out there to add to the community? Are we adding something to our community?
And even creating connection points in
Yeah.
our community. I think that's interesting. Fashion's a big one like that. Music's another one that's a big connector. Food experiences I can think of.
All of these shared passions that you have with your main customer base. You're not just, you make one thing probably when you're one part of that, but you also have relationships in the community with other parts of it. So I love a good brand collaboration actually between brands that have like-minded consumer bases. I always see a lot of energy around those when those happen. So looking for those can be really beneficial too.
I think a nice way to put it too is a brand needs to be part of the community.
Yeah.
It can't be the community. And I think that's a mistake some big brands make.
Yes.
It's all about, name a big brand that just like
I don't know, the North Face. I think Patagonia and the North Face are interesting studies. Patagonia does more to kind of live their mission in the community to prove that out. I would say North Face is more buy our product. Here's our cool product.
Well, I know somebody who worked at North Face when they went from, I think it was like an $80 million company to an $800 million company or something crazy like that, or maybe $200 million. And he said that at that point, it was not about the use of their gear for outdoor activities. It was about selling their gear to brand enthusiasts. And I think that is really interesting because Patagonia has been successful in both areas, but they've remained true to their corporate values. And I think that as a product extension going into foodstuffs, you would think, oh my God, that is so far out there. But if you think about the basic tenets of sustainable clothing, sustainable agriculture, healthy food, clothing to do healthy things in, I think there's a real synergy there, and it is an extension of their brand in the community.
Yeah, it makes sense that they could make something Patagonia Provisions, and it would be authentic and interesting based on the standards that they had set in the apparel industry and their beliefs. If North Face had a food line, I don't think I would care.
I don't be like a Charleston Chew.
Is it like it's probably like an energy?
And I was thinking, say an energy bar, Charleston Chew energy drink,
but it's narrow. Yeah, it would be kind of a narrow, not very impactful expansion of the brand.
And that's because there's a clear understanding of what the Patagonia brand represents and the values. And I think that goes back
because they kept reinforcing that over the years. They built that understanding with their client base and their consumer base.
So looking forward, I guess one thing that's of note is Wieden+Kennedy never got rolled up into the big global advertising conglomerates, Publicis and Omnicom. And now that they're consolidating, how do you see smaller agencies playing in the space or succeeding?
Yeah, I think the pendulum can kind of swing back with the assist of AI, and that you can do so much more to free up your ability to drive strategy and campaigns, because there's a lot of scale used to need to kind of generate the lower mid-funnel, lower level marketing that works hard. Yeah. But now you can make a lot of that a lot faster and systemize it and free up for original thinking and larger idea generation and strategy push for our clients. So it enables us to execute fully through the funnel, but continue to lead our clients on a higher level because we have that kind of time freed up for authentic, original creativity.
Judgment.
And judgment.
Judgment, yes.
Bringing our judgment to a client's problem from the outside. They may have it inside, and that's, I think, the beauty of hiring an agency. You get that outside vision to represent the consumer.
Yeah. I wrote a little editorial piece that I posted as well, that I feel like the big agencies are using AI just like the accounting firms did when they consolidated, not using AI, but they're using it now, to create efficiencies. And when you create that efficiencies in the work pipeline across a large agency, they're really working below the line, and they are trying to create more cost-efficient advertising, and that's great. When you have a small agency, you have a small collaborative team that works across the entire brand and engagement and campaign, and there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, which isn't lost among layers and layers of bureaucracy, and efficiencies is what you see at those global agencies. And we've seen it again and again. And I feel like we also have access to talk about the research that we're doing very efficiently with panels and focus groups and quantitative and AI agentic panels. I really feel like that isn't just coming from the data department, but it's also understood by everybody working on the campaign.
Yeah, I think I would say that's a big reason why I joined Catalysis in the first place. I've always been at more creatively founded and driven shops, but then to kind of have the experience with data and research and information that Catalysis has, married with brand storytelling that I can bring to that, it just enables, with the help of AI, to kind of elevate that senior leadership and judgment that I think brands need from the outside. And that's what we're kind of made up of, is that senior layers of experience that can apply that judgment to what's used with the AI tools. So we're just racing through all of that experience in AI right now to kind of finish building our models for how we're going to work with clients.
At one point, I'll tell this story. I don't know if you know Daniel Morel. He was president of Wonderman, and he came to try buy us. He was an agency under McCann Erickson. And he said, well, aren't you worried? We're a global agency. Aren't you worried we're going to put you out of business? And I said, well, I've seen your work, and I have no fear of you putting us out of business. Right. But I also was working on a campaign, and they came to the client, which was Microsoft, and said, look, we can tell you all the clicks you have on these online ads. And this is in the 90s, I think, or no, early 2000s. And I said, well, that's great, but I can tell you who clicked on the ad, if they registered for the free trial product, if they activated the free trial product, and if they converted that free trial product to a paid product purchase. Yeah. And that's the whole pipeline I'm talking about, which we had access to the Microsoft Key database. So we could tell all this because of trust, because we understood data early on. And I felt like that was such a differentiator. And it's what we've used to keep us ahead all along the way. And now that we're going into AI, it's same story, different tools. Yeah. But we're seeing people say, oh, well, it's got AI. It's got AI. It's good. It's got AI. And we're saying, but what is it doing for you? Yeah. Is it creating more creativity? Is it creating better customer insights? More insights that
are usable for a creative as well. Like what you just said is incredible feedback to kind of problem solve with creatively. If there's people getting stuck at a certain point of not clicking or whatnot, what can we do at that moment to kind of tell a different story
and move them through the pipeline? Yeah. So thank you for being at Catalysis. We're glad you're here, and thank you for being in the SpeakEasy.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of SpeakEasy. I hope you enjoyed our conversation or learned something from it, and I have a favor to ask. Please share us, like us, leave your comments. You know the game. And most of all, if you have any guests you'd like to suggest, please let us know. The full transcript and show notes are available at catalysis.com/speakeasy. Keep asking, keep listening, and most of all, keep learning.